Good morning, AP Research students. Mr. Muller here, and in today's lesson, which is one of the two most important video lessons we will have this year, we're going to talk about how to take your what, why, and origin statement and develop that into a problem statement and a research question. Now, the two most important things in a research paper are the research question that you've identified and the methodology that you will use to answer that research question. Today's video talks with the first of those two most important components. Hope you're excited. I'm excited. Let's get started. Now, again, if you haven't watched the what, why, and order to statement, or if you're confused about how to create one, go back to the previous video because you can't start on a proper problem statement until you have an accepted what, why, and order to statement. Because once you have it, now what you need to do is to contextualize the topic for me, so that as I read it, I understand why this is significant. You need to introduce a problem with that topic, because if there is no problem, then there is no need to do any research, and you need to insert a research question that needs to be answered and is valuable. Now again, two things we're working with, problem statements and research questions, and they are directly related. Problem statements contextualize an issue for readers and introduce a problem that needs to be solved. This leads directly to your research question, which again is what you are trying to answer. What is your research all about? Now, I need to give you a particular term that I'm going to be using called Presearch. You need to look through and read and annotate. You're going to have to do some preliminary research once you've identified your what, or created your what, why, and origin statement, so that you can properly contextualize your topic and identify a research question, because your research question needs to be something that hasn't been asked before. So you're going to have to do some pre-search. Probably about 5 research papers you're going to have to investigate to properly create your problem statement. So here's what a problem statement looks like. Now, AP Research did a great job because you are merely filling in the blanks here. You do not have to go beyond this. This is what you need to answer. Now, I have a couple of exemplars where we'll highlight some things that I'm looking for in terms of assessing the effectiveness of your problem statement, but this is what a problem statement is. And it ends with a research question. Now, I'm not going to read it out for you. You are intelligent AP students. You can read for yourself. So let's actually take a look at what some of this looks like. There's a problem in or with middle school education, so a specific particular topic. And what you're going to notice is that they go from broad to extremely specific by the end of this problem statement. So they're starting off with, again, their basic topic, middle school education. It's like the first part of your what, why, and order statement. I am trying to learn about X. Okay, so now let's talk about what the problem is. Despite efforts to educate middle schoolers on appropriate, safe, and effective uses of technology for learning, cyberbullying is occurring. So despite something that should be happening, cyberbullying is occurring, which affects about 10 million middle school students each year. So it's also saying why this is significant. Now, you can get this from a lot of the introductions of research papers when they introduce their topic. So you don't have to read all of these research papers necessarily. You're just trying to tell me what the problem is. Now, they got this from a 2008 source from an author whose last name is Bean. This is obviously coming from an MLA citation, because if it was APA, it'd have a page number right there. But one thing I'm looking for when I see a problem statement is, where is the, if you're talking about what a problem is, you need to tell me where it's coming from. I know it's not your own interpretation. So what source did you identify this problem for? Now tell me who this problem affects. This problem has negatively impacted 28% of middle school students because many schools decline to discipline off-campus behavior. Now again, you use a specific statistic. There should be an in-text citation at the end of this statement. This example is a little bit poor because, again, I don't know where this information came from. Now, does it identify who it's negatively impacting? Absolutely. But again, it's not your own research. Cite the source it comes from. So that's what I would tell you if you gave this to me. A possible cause of this problem is how to effectively address the ill effects of cyberbullying are complex or unknown. Perhaps a study which investigates the ill effects of cyberbullying and how they were addressed could remedy this situation. So what's causing this problem? What could possibly fix this problem? That last sentence is going to be the basis for the research question that you would develop. Now again, notice they went from middle school education to cyberbullying to what the ill effects of cyberbullying are and how they're specifically addressed. So they went from really broad to much more specific. Now, what research question could be developed from this? What are the ill effects of cyberbullying and associated punitive measures implemented by 4 middle schools in District XYZ, a case study? Now, don't worry about approach, design, or method. That's going to be addressed in our next video on methodology. But this is a research question. Now, what makes a good research question? There are actually 4 components that I am looking for: focus, scope, value, and feasibility. Focus is merely, is it on a specific topic? It's very easy to achieve focus. I can tell you have chosen a specific topic. Value is also fairly easy to address. Value just means, is it important to answer this research question? Is it valuable to your discipline to have this answered? Does it add to the research? Does it add to the understanding that your discipline has on that topic? That's also fairly easy to do if you've done this process correctly. Scope and feasibility are a little bit tougher, and typically they're tied together. If the scope is too broad or too narrow, it won't be feasible to research it. Oppositely, if it's not feasible, it's typically because your scope is too broad or too narrow. Scope is how specific are you being with a time, place, population, and genre. Your wording matters. You need to tell me specifically what you are researching, age groups of students, what school this is going to be based out of, what groups you're going to be targeting. Because if your scope is too broad, there's no way you're going to be able to answer it. And if it's too narrow, you might not be able to get enough data to answer it. Feasibility is merely, do you have the time? Because remember, you've only got about a year to do this, and you're doing only your really data collection analysis in about 3 months. Do you have enough resources? Do you have the money? Do you have the equipment to actually answer that question? So let's take a look at some problem statements that my students have developed. There is a problem in or with proportionality effect theory and consumer choice. Despite that adding an additional item to a group is theorized to take away shares from each other item in the group in proportion to the original shares, adding a similar item to a choice group has been seen to take shares away from the items most proximate to it in original choice set, or has been seen to increase the favorable perceptions of similar items in the choice set. Okay, so you're using a particular source. It's not perfect APA style. Also, really check your mechanics and grammar. I have a tough time understanding this. Also, I have no idea what proportionality effect theory and consumer choice is. You're going to need to define that. This was found in Huber and Puto's 1983 study, Market Boundaries and Product Choice, in which they state that attraction effects and substitution effects were more predominantly found. Okay. The problem has negatively impacted firms. I don't know what firms means, because it has complicated their marketing strategies as to how they can make a targeted product/service more appealing to consumers. I have no idea where you got that from. I'm going to ask for a citation there. A possible cause of this problem is the lack of understanding of the factors that affect a decoy item from working successfully, causing the attraction effect. Perhaps a study that investigates whether the placement of the decoy item in the list of choices and the differences in quality and price of the decoy item from the similar items through a quantitative method survey, don't worry about that, method survey, could remedy this situation. So let's take a look at the research question. To what extent do factors such as the order in which you include a decoy item in a list of choices, the difference in quality of the decoy from the similar object, and the difference in price of the decoy from the similar object affect the effectiveness of the decoy from creating the attraction effect in consumer choice? Okay, I don't know what a decoy item is, and I don't know why that's important. It doesn't really seem that that's addressed in the problem statement, so I see a bit of I don't see a lot of flow. I see some breaks, so that as a reader I don't quite understand what you're doing here. So I would say you really need to define decoy and take me through what the heck effect theory is and attraction effect is. You need to give me an extra citation there for that second little paragraph. And that, if we're looking at the research question, yeah, it's focused. I think it's valuable. And in terms of scope, I think it also might be too specific. Or it might be too broad because you're looking at multiple things. I don't know if you want, if you're going to have enough time and resources, and especially space in a 5,000 word research paper to actually answer all of these things. So I would say the scope is a bit off, or you really have to justify the rationale for that scope and cite other research that's been done that shows that this is within your field of discipline expectations. And I don't quite know if it's feasible because of that. Let's take a look at another example. There's a problem with the way that young Kuwaitis, aged 14 to 21, view the struggles of females in the Middle East. Despite efforts by vast corporations and the media to alert Arabs on economic gender inequality, many millennials are unaware of the ways in which Kuwaiti women need more economic rights, or even worse, view these discrepancies as being over-exaggerated because of the ineffectiveness of Arab economic justice movements. Okay, specific. I'm not lost yet, but I'd love to know where you got that information from, so that needs an in-text citation at the end of that sentence. This problem has negatively impacted young Kuwaiti women to the highest degree, as, quote, much of the gender equality policy discourse is so closely tied to the advancement of a neoliberal economic policy agenda characterized by market fundamentalism, deregulation, and corporate-led development, unquote, and thus does little to actually educate young Kuwaitis on female economic struggles. Okay, there's your in-text citation. I guess they're doing MLA, but if this is going to be a more social discipline in the humanities, it needs APA. A possible cause of this problem is traditional economic and social expectations of women that are well rooted in Kuwaiti culture and among young Kuwaitis. So again, broad topic, females in the Kuwaiti females in the Middle East, and they're getting more specific. They're not losing me yet, so I see it all flow. Perhaps a study which investigates young citizens' current views on women's struggles to achieve economic equality in the Kuwaiti workforce based on, and here's your method, which we talk about in the next video, 40 anonymously surveyed students from X School of Kuwait and X University could help remedy this issue. Okay, so besides having a particular source for that second sentence, I don't see much that needs to be changed here. Let's take a look at the research question. Now again, I'm looking for focus, value, scope, and feasibility. To what extent do young Kuwaiti citizens, aged 14 to 21, at X School of Kuwait and Kuwait University condemn the current economic income inequalities between Kuwaiti men and women in the local workforce? Okay, focus, yes, particular topic. Value, yeah, it definitely would be valuable to be answered. Let's take a look at the two hardest ones. Scope, age 14 to 21. I would need some sort of justification for why that age group is appropriate, because that might be a little bit too big. That's a lot of ages, 14 or 21. Can you feasibly get an answer from everyone in that age group? I would just need some justification there. Looks like a high school and a university. I think that would be appropriate as long as you think you can fully answer that question from two institutions instead of one. And economic income inequalities between Kuwaiti men and women in the local workforce. I don't see any issues there. So I think the scope is appropriate. Feasibility, I would just ask, do you think you have enough time to go to both these places? Do you feel like you can get enough of a response from that age group? So I would just ask for some rationalizations there. But that's how I would assess this research question. Now again, something you're always going to get, and just be ready for this. No problem statement or research question is going to be perfect. I'm going to give you lots of feedback. That is called learning, because learning is an active process that you do. It's not going to be perfect the first time. You're probably going to get multiple rounds of feedback from me on this. That's completely fine. Well, that's all we have for today. Hope you learned something you didn't know before. Thanks for watching.